Hi, this is Carl, US Radio Guy at usradioguy.com. Today I'm going to talk about the software that I use for satellite image post-processing and a little bit about the software I use to decode the satellites. So what is open source software? It's it's available software that's been made available to allow people, if they want to change, edit, modify, rescript it, and tailor it for their own needs. It's free, and typically there's no terribly restrictive licenses for it, and it can be redistributed by anyone even after they've made those changes. You can download it from sites like GitHub. Other proprietary sites like ImageMagick has their own site that you can download ImageMagick from. You can also download it from GitHub as well. But they're very cool tools, and they should be in your toolbox for many different reasons. I use it extensively to create the images that you see on usradioguide.com and that I share on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, other social media. So open source software is kind of like the recipe. It's like the ingredients that go into a recipe. You can mix them together to create something totally new, or you can take pieces of that code and put it with the other code and create something new. What's nice about it is you're not limited to the instructions from that recipe. If you wanted to add something to it, you can. I do this all the time. A case in point is with Sanchez software. Matt, who came up with the original software, has a list of what's called a JSON file, and it has all the satellites and all their images you can pick up. But I went, gee, can I do something different with that? Can I add other satellites to it? And he did the same thing. So you can go in and edit those codes and create your own recipe, your own software, to tailor it to do what you want it to do. So without any further ado, I'm going to go in and I'm going to run through about 30 minutes of all the different pieces of open source software that I use, including, I'm sure I'm going to forget some as well, but enjoy. Okay, now getting into some of the open source software that I use to do the satellite imagery. The first and foremost is you have to be able to receive the images. So I'm using a couple different pieces of software to run it on a Raspberry Pi. I'm using the latest Raspberry software, which isn't open source, but it's freely downloadable. And then on top of that, I'm running this piece of software right here. It's called GoesTools. This is the piece of software that I prefer to use. It's configurable. It's free. You can modify it. You can change the handlers in it to alter the type of data you receive. If you don't want to receive, say, band 14 from the GOES satellite, you can simply eliminate it. You want to add country outlines, you can add that in. If you want to add county outlines onto the planet, you can add that in. Rivers, it's really configurable if you dig into the code and make those changes. Now, I do have a tutorial on GoesTool on my website. It's pretty straightforward if you follow it exactly as I have put it in. Installation for most people works fine the first or second try. There's always, putting a space in the wrong place or putting a comma in can throw stuff off. I encourage you to use the copy and paste when you do that, and it's designed for a headless Raspberry Pi operation. The author of GoesTools comes right out and says this is a minimalist installation, so if you're putting it on a Ubuntu or another Linux type machine, obviously you'll have to make some changes to your system and to GoesTools installation to make it work. And I have some of those documented as well. Now, this is one of the other pieces of software that I use on everything that I do with post-processing of satellite imagery. ImageMagick is free. It's a command line utility, runs on Linux, Mac, Windows. It's written in C, and it's really, really versatile. The learning curve on it is kind of steep. You have to learn how to do command line arguments for it, but if you want to display, convert, edit, change, anything like that, this is the tool to use. It's like using Photoshop except without the GUI, the graphic utility interface. Works really, really well. I use it extensively in all my image processing. And if you look at some of the NOAA sites, University of Wisconsin, SSEC, the Space Science and Engineering Center, the Real Earth, the Center, the CIMMSS pages, the CIRA, they all use ImageMagick in the background to generate those amazing images you see on their websites. They're taking NetCDF files from the GOES satellite and then converting them into images, and then ImageMagick is actually creating the images you see on the screen through their code. They've also used it to create those GIF images when you get an animation. And then on top of ImageMagick, they're also using this. This is FFmpeg. What this does is it's very similar to ImageMagick in that it's a command line tool to work and create and edit streaming, recorded, any kind of video. It can decode, encode, transcode, mux, demux, stream, and filter and play, like it says on their website, pretty much anything that humans and machines have created. It supports the most obscure ancient formats, like the old Windows AVI standards, the new standards. For instance, if you wanted to post something to Twitter and you run an MP4 production on a video and you load it up on a Twitter and Twitter says, nope, it's the wrong file format. Well, there's a method in FFmpeg to change that and make it work for Twitter. So it's very versatile. This is like the second most used tool in my toolbox for manipulating GOES imagery. I'll use ImageMagick to create the images, alter them to my needs, put in my watermark, stack them, and then FFmpeg to actually process them into a video. When I first started, I would use ImageMagick to create a GIF and then turn that GIF into an MPEG video, an MP4. And that was a little lossy. I didn't like the way it turned out. So now I have a new formula so that it goes right from images right into an MP4. And it's a little different working on a Linux system versus Windows. I do all my work on batch files, which I'll show you in another episode. So there's a big difference between a colon and a quotation mark. There's differences between having a percent sign, a single percent sign versus having 2% signs. So it's a learning curve again that you have to get with and learn on what to do. So then you got all these images, and for some of us, like who received the LRIT signal from GK2A, or maybe just the channel 13 coming from GOES, which is basically a black and white infrared image. A guy down in New Zealand, Matt Painter, came up with this really slick software called Sanchez. This is probably my third most used piece of open source software for when I do image creation. Now, he designed it initially to take a band 13 image, an IR image, which is just black and white, and add a false color background to that image in the same way that NOAA does with a lot of their imagery. When you see a lot of their imagery, you're like, oh, that looks really cool. Well, they've actually used a background image of the Earth that was created by another satellite, and then overlaid the cloud layers on top of that, or the other data like infrared imagery. So if you just look here, there's some samples on the Sanchez page that shows you what that does. So it's taking that black and white image and overlaying that onto an image of the Earth that was created somewhere else. It's a rectangular image just like this one. What's cool about Sanchez is you can reproject an image that came in as a globe like this and reproject it in a equirectangular projection, so you have a flat view of the Earth. And then by adding other tools into that, like ImageMagick or FFmpeg, you can animate those things and create some really, really cool animations. Okay, here's another animation that's done. This is using ImageMagick and FFmpeg, if I get it going here. These are the 9 basic bands that most of us receive from GOES 16 or GOES 17, which is no longer active, and now GOES 18. What's nice about Sanchez is you can actually add other satellites to the list if you want to decode something else. Let me load up something else here. These are just the last couple of days. This one's a 36-hour projection. This one's coming in from GOES 16, and then using FFmpeg, I've also added the tiled imagery in the lower right corner here. Now, because I said earlier that I use batch scripts to create my animations, and I have a ton of batch scripts, which I'll be talking about in other episodes, I also use Auto Task Scheduler on Windows to automate that process. Because I have a website, usradioguy.com, and I like to upload the imagery that I create directly to the website. So using yet another open source piece of software, it's called WinSCP, that allows me to automatically take something that I've created or I have on my computer and throw it up on the internet on my website. So like these 36-hour images that I do, and this one, I'll just get that playing in the background. Those I create using Task Scheduler at a certain time every day to run my pre-created batch file that creates the 36-hour imagery, which also includes a line in there, well, actually it's quite a few lines, using WinSIP to take that image and throw it up to the internet. That's uploaded once a day to my website. I know a lot of people like to throw all their images on the web, and it gets a little overwhelming when you see, because you can get hundreds and hundreds of pictures a day. And there is another tool I'd like to talk about that's also open source, and it's another fantastic tool for folks who want to view their imagery. Okay, this is another great piece of software, again, created by somebody who just went, I'd really like a better way to display the files, the images that are getting created through using GOES tools. And now he's included another open source piece of software that allows SatDump to work with his software. It's called Vitality GOES. Jamie created this. He's got it posted over on his site. Let me go down and I'll link over to his off of my page. And what it does, it's a web app that allows you, or the end user, or if you want to port it to the internet, again, take precautions because you don't want somebody being able to access your home computer and do nefarious things to it. But it allows that person to view all the images you created. And he's done some really slick scripting so that if you want animations, you can use Vitality GOES to do that. Just jumping around a little bit because I'm using OBS Studio. So this is Jamie's GOES Vitality page, showing you how it looks on a cell phone, how it looks on your screen. You can monitor the information that's coming out of GOES tool, your vid averages, your drop packets, all sorts of things with that. I'm going to open up mine to show you what it looks like. So give it a second here. Okay, so I've modified Jamie's original screen and throw in my own, because I just like to throw in my graphics and things like this. But what's really cool about GOES Vitality is one of the chunks of data we get from GOES is this MWIN feed, and it's a ton of information. And I'm talking about 10,000 text messages that might be downloaded into your computer a day. What GOES Vitality allows you to do is basically tell the computer to filter everything out that you don't want to see. So in my case, I don't need to see the weather from Punta Gorda or Ontario or Guam, but I want to see the weather that's close to me. So you set it up in the setups, and you get your current weather, current radar, weather summary, your forecast, your 7-day forecast. And Jamie's done some really cool work. So you got the graphics there to show you what's going on. You can obviously be able to look at your imagery. Now, I've got a lot of imagery because it says I have 3 years of archived imagery. In about 3 months, I'm going to be changing that to 4 years because I've actually been doing this quite a long time. But I can bring up the latest image here. So this is what my satellite, the latest image it's downloaded, is now showing up in this web app. And I can run my 36-hour time lapse on it and call up what that imagery looks like over the past 36 hours. I'll close that one down. I also have it set, so if I want to pop in that tiled imagery, I can do that. And again, what's nice with this open source software is you can go in and edit this stuff and basically have it look at everything you want. Any kind of satellite imagery, in theory, should be able to be displayed on this. If I want to go over to GOES 18, see the latest Band 7 shortwave file, or the latest my color image, which I use again. I've modified GOES tool. It's open source. So I created my own color lookup table to kind of enhance the images from when the first color lookup table was done about 4 years ago. And what I did is I went into the Space Science and Engineering Center and CIRA, and I got their actual color codes and built my own loot that I apply to my satellite imagery to give me maybe a little bit more color in my images. Increased the saturation a little bit, cleaned it up so that in the wintertime the country doesn't look quite as blue up here in North America, because all you're using is infrared imagery that's creating this. And because the land is colder than it is in the summer, it appears in a more bluer shade. There's really no good way to get rid of that unless you use Sanchez to create some background imagery, which I'll also show you a couple of examples of here in a minute. What else does Sanchez do? You can get National Weather Service graphics. If I want to see what the sea state analysis is for the Atlantic, maybe I want to know what the winds are in the Pacific, the wave heights, surface pressure analysis. It's all there. It's coming in on that MWind feed, so you might as well use it. You also can get MWind graphics. You've got, I'm just going to click on a couple of these. This is the Rockies radar. If I want to see what the weather fronts are going to be like, I can call that up. Other MWind stuff that you might not see. Many people don't know this, but all the GOES satellites also transmit the current TLE lines, the two-line element sets that we use to find out where the satellites are in space. And let's say you want to use this system, but you don't have access to the internet, or as one of the cases that I show on my website, the guy put an APT receiver where there's no internet, but he can download this from GOES, translate the TLE just by converting it to a text file, and boom, he's got all the TLEs for the satellites. NOAA, Meteor, all those. If there's any administrative alerts, if you have any radar outages, space weather, the licensing information, telling you what you can and can do with the data. He's got a hurricane center, your local settings. These are mine that are going to pop up here, so these are what I'm looking for in this. Now, getting back to the open source software and what you can do with it. Now, I received GOES 16 and 18 and Himawari via relay directly from both of my dishes. But one of the things I'd always wanted to do, and I probably still will if I ever get the space to put a big dish in, is I want to receive GRB imagery. I can't do that right now, but fortunately I have two other friends of mine, one who works for NOAA and one who's just an amateur a radio astronomer that also have a GRB setup, and they have given me access from time to time. So about once a day, I'll go in and download a current channel 2 image from their GRB system, and they're quite large. So I have it set up on an auto script. I don't sit in front of my computer and do this. It all happens behind the scenes when I'm, who knows, I might be making a blog right now, and that software will pop up and start running. But what I've done is used Matt's Sanchez software, and I've edited his files that tell the Sanchez software how to project an image, and I've instructed it through his JSON file to use GRB imagery, in this case band 2, a GRB image, which is really large, and I've also used a really large background image. And that automatically gets uploaded to my website. I have 2 versions. This little one right here, which is a smaller little thumbnail that you can click on, and then it goes on and presents the whole image on my website. Now, this is not HRIT imagery. This is GRB imagery, band 2, excuse me, applied to an underlay using Sanchez. And what's cool about it is, I'm not even zoomed in yet, but if I zoom in, let's zoom in on up here by Maine, right, which it's not working right now. There we go. Guess it took a while for the hiccup to stop. But look at that cloud imagery. I mean, this is so sharp and clear. Go over to Florida, take a look at the area around Cuba. So when I use the band 2 imagery, it also gives me a lot of land details that are lost in the IR imagery. And those are both applied to the image that I create. Now, I also have a little trick, and one other little piece of software that I haven't quite mentioned was an older piece of software called XPlanet. XPlanet was created, I think, in like 1999 or 2000, originally as a way to display a picture of a fake planet that you could create on your desktop. And again, somebody had this great idea, and then other people went, oh, if you can do this, let's add something else to it. Can we show the night side? Can we show the day side? And yeah, you can. So let me switch out of here, and I'll try to show you what the capabilities of XPlanet are. Okay, this is an image created today, 1800 UT, or yesterday, I'm sorry, 1800 UTC. I do this again, this is all automatic. My scripts run, it creates the image, and then in this case, I actually have it also run through XPlanet. And what XPlanet allows me to do is quite a bit. In this case, if I zoom in on one of these areas, you see these lines? These are actually the orbital lines of NOAA 15, 16, and 17 as they're going. There's a Meteor M22 right there, NOAA 20. But I have it add all the lines to it. Plus, I also have it add in major landmarks like Quebec, New York, my ground station. Let me zoom back out. And what it also allows you to do is do day-night masks. So when you have a day-night mask, you have daylight on this side. So at 1800 UTC, this part was in sunlight, but this part over the planet was dark. So I'm using a Suomi NPP night image captured by satellite, which shows all those city lights. There's India, you got parts of Africa, Mediterranean. Now, I'm going to point this out because I used to be able to receive EWS G1 satellite imagery from Zbigniew out in Poland, but his receiver, he's gone on to do much bigger things, and he hasn't been running his receiver. So I'm actually using the Center for Space Science and Engineering Center data for EWS G1. The problem is they automatically apply the country lines, which for me, for images, doesn't really matter when I'm looking at like the equatorial regions, because those lines really don't show up. They're very thin. But when the image gets stretched out, those lines get stretched out as well. So I'm left with these horrible artifacts. And I've actually cut these down by about 70%, but I just can't get rid of these artifacts left from the country boundaries. Kind of makes for an ugly picture, but it is what it is, and I can do global imagery, adding that satellite into it. So in this picture, we're using GOES 18 over here, a little bit of Himawari 9, Electro L2 is right here. This is EWSG1. GK2A is right around here, and then some more of that edge of Himawari 9. So going on again with some more of the these images are created using both Sanchez and XPlanet. So you can see you got NOAA 18 zipping around the corner here. I have it actually project stars in the background, and those use the Yale star catalog. So those stars are actually where they should be at the time this particular image was taken. There's some more satellites there, a couple of more stars. There's that Meteor M2 getting ready to come around the South Pole, NOAA 20. There's quite a bit you can do. I'll back one up here. Okay, going back to some imagery, let's see. So there's the night view. This is the view from Electro L2, where it's centered over at its orbital position. You can see if I just use the feature here, you can see the lights from the cities below. And there's EWSG1 with its ugly outlines. If anybody knows of a public source where I can get EWSG1 besides SSEC, let me know, because I haven't found it yet. Here's one showing the transition from day to night right here. So you got daytime over here, and that's from Himawari 9. And another night image, that's from GeoComsat 2. Goes, nope, let's see, what is that? Goes 13, so that's EWGS, or EWSG1. I got to change the naming on that. See, I got the right date, but I got the right label, wrong label. GOES 17 is now operating, or GOES 18 is operating in the position GOES 17 used to maintain. Now, as I was looking for another piece of software, I stumbled across this one. This one, I should say, this is probably my most used piece of open source software. If you don't have it, I highly encourage you to get it. It's called Notepad++. It basically takes the regular Windows Notepad, and it's on 3,000 steroids. It allows you to do so much for editing code, editing files. In this case, I was just recently adding a couple of MWind images to the information file for Jamie's Vitality software. These, just showing these in the background, this is some of the code. So this one, those pictures I showed you with XPlanet, this is some of the coding that I've done that allow me to run that software and create those images. And it took a while to figure out all this out, but I was able to do it. And it is tailored for my system. So if you were to say, hey, Carl, can you send me that? I can. It's not going to work. You would have to tailor it to fit your system. I have 6 hard drives, 3 2 terabyte hard drives, and 3 1 terabyte hard drive to store and process my imagery. So if you look around, like I've got a D drive coming in here. If I go up top, I got F drive, C drive. So it's a little bit different than, it's definitely configured for my system. And then this one is a composite, when I composite a day-night image for my website as well. So Notepad++, highly encourage it. That should be the first tool in your toolbox. Okay, last piece of software I'm going to talk about, and a lot of you probably won't even need to use this. This is called QGIS. And what it is a mapping tool that you can create just amazing GIS information from. I'm using the latest version. That's the Buenos Aires version, 3.26.3. There's earlier versions, but again, this is all open source software. So I'm just going to give you a quick example of what kind of stuff I do with this. So this is one of the, one of the images I created using geostationary satellite data, and I do this once a day. I have those 6 satellites that I get the information from, and I plot out this geo-referenced map. So I've got this map. You go, okay, cool, I can see the clouds and stuff. What can I do with that? Well, one thing that I wanted to try when we had the fires out west, and I do it for, well, I used to do it for Meteor M2 and Meteor 22. They don't seem to be working. At least Meteor 2 doesn't anymore. Meteor 2.2 is definitely not working. I'm hoping if and when Russia ever launches the next one, we'll be able to get some nice images from that. But I was able to map out global fire hotspots on it. So I thought, if I can do it on that, why can't I do it using the GOES imagery, the Himawari imagery, and the other 3 satellites I used to create this big global composite? So there's a site out there that they already do this, that we map out the fire hotspots across the world using NOAA 20, NOAA 21, Suomi satellites that are polar orbiters, and they're orbiting the Earth constantly, and they're mapping every single hotspot. And it doesn't have to be a forest fire or a bushfire down in Australia. These can be things like oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. It could be factories. It could be nuclear power plants. Anything that's generating a significant heat differential between what's normally on the ground and that heat signature will show up on the map. So I've already brought in this map. It's already geo-referenced. That's a whole nother ball of wax I would have to explain. But I'm going to pop in all the fire hotspots for the last 24 hours. So these are the hotspots showing up here on the last 24 hours. And you look at them like, okay, there's a lot, but I'm going to modify this. Go down here to properties, because these circles are way too big for what I use. Let me drag this over here so you can see. So I'm going to load a style that I've already created for my map hotspots. And there it is. We'll do that one. The fire circle. We'll load that style. Apply it, and you'll see all the number or the little things change there. There we go. To the smaller little dots here. Now I can tell because it looks like I'm still running 8 pieces of software that my memory on my computer is not doing so good. I'm getting some jitters. So, but all of these are all the little hot spots. And if I go over here and look at Gulf of Mexico, let them load up here. Zoom out a little bit. There they go. You'll see some, they're out here in the Gulf of Mexico. Those are actually some of the offshore oil wells in the Gulf of Mexico. So there's a lot of data manipulation you can do with these. So this is QGIS. Again, it's open source. There's a ton of plugins. If you can build a globe, it works just like Sanchez. You can create a globe view. You can also automatically display active fire hotspots. If I go to the repository, let's bring that over here. These are just some of there's just a ton of plugins you can get. If you want to put all the country maps on it, you can do that. If you want to put in population growth, there's so much manipulation you can do with the post-processing of imagery that's pretty staggering. I'm going to shut that down now. Don't want to save any of that. But all in all, that's it. That's about what I've got for open source software. It's out there. Look for it, find it, learn it. A lot of these places also have forums, is that if you don't understand something like Image Magic, if you don't know how to take a black and white picture and make it purple, there's a forum out there where if you ask that question, I can say probably within hours you'll get somebody to help you out. If you need to find a way to animate something, you post, your code that you have, and somebody out there has probably already done it like me, and they'll say, oh yeah, you just go in here and, like in this case, this is my code for reducing the file size while optimizing GOES imagery. It's pretty complicated. It took me a while to figure it out, but it saves on file sizes for me. So open source is out there. It's highly configurable. I encourage you to try it. Good luck. I'll post some links to these things in my comments. And as always, like and subscribe to my page. And I hope you learned a little bit of something. And I'll be back again another day. and I'll start talking about all these scripts and how you can use them in your applications as well. Thank you.